I'll just start the introduction now. I think a few more people might join, but they'll catch up when they get here. So hello and welcome to You're on Mute. This is a series of online sessions that focus on digital engagement projects with older participants. The session is hosted by FACT Liverpool. I apologise if you can hear any drilling in the background. It's just started, sorry. For those of you who aren't familiar with FACT, we support and exhibit art and film that embraces new technology and explores digital culture. We're based in Liverpool on Wood Street, and our building is home to 3 art galleries, a cinema and a lab for learning and experimentation. If you want to find out more about what we do and what's on, how to get involved, head to our website at fact.co.uk. I believe the links will be posted in the chat. And if you want any more information about this event in particular, it's fact.co.uk/you're-on-mute. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook using the handle fact_Liverpool. Our partners for this 3-part series are Younger Art, Happy Older People, National Museums Liverpool and Open Art Gallery. Sorry, I think the drilling's very loud at the moment. This series is supported by Arts Council England and the Bearing Foundation. I'm Kate Hughes, I'm the public programme producer at FACT. I will audio describe myself. I'm a woman with brown hair sat next to a window with a plant. All of our speakers will audio describe before they introduce themselves today. And I'm now going to hand over to Chris Rolls, who will facilitate this session. But before I do, a bit of housekeeping. Please stay on mute during the panel presentations. There will be time for Q&A and there will be breakout rooms. You can use the chat function at any time for questions, but we'll have a dedicated time to answer them. There is closed captions for this session. You can click on the transcript CC button at the bottom of your screen and then show subtitles. If you've got any problems, you need any help at any point, you can just write directly to me or Gina from our marketing team in the chat. We'll record the panel presentations and they will be made accessible after the session, but we're not going to record the workshop so everyone feels comfortable to contribute. If you would like to, while Chris is introducing the panel in a moment, can you change your name on Zoom to your name and the organisation or the work that you're representing, or if you're an artist or a producer. You can do this by clicking on the participants button at the top of the Zoom window, hover your mouse over the name in the participants list and then click rename. All of our panellists will be introduced in a moment, but I'm going to hand you over to Chris Rolls. Thanks.
Hello. Thank you, Kate. Thank you so much. And hello to everyone. A really, really warm welcome. Delighted to be here with you this afternoon. Before I introduce myself, just to say that we're going to hear from 2 fantastic panelists about their work in this area. I'll be introducing them in a bit more detail in a second. And then after the first half, we're going to be inviting you into breakout rooms together in smaller groups to discuss the topic that we're looking at today, and then inviting some feedback at the end as well from those groups as well. So my name's Chris Rolls. I am Head of Training and Development at 64 Million Artists. We're a non-profit and we promote creativity, social inclusion and participation in all sorts of different community groups up and down the country. I'm just wondering, Kate or Fact, is there a way to turn off the doorbell sound when people enter the group? Just I wonder if that might be a little bit distracting for some. We'll see if we can do that. Yeah. I am a white man with black hair, sat in wearing a black shirt, and I'm sat in a room full of plants. So that's an audio description of me. I'm not, because of time and because of the fact we're going to be going into breakout rooms and discussion later, we're not going to invite everyone, even though we're quite a nice intimate group here, we're not going to invite everyone to introduce yourselves, I'm afraid, just because we really like us to get on. As I can assure you can appreciate, intros can sort of take up quite a lot of time, but really hoping that we'll get your voices coming in later, and really want you to feel that this is a open and safe place for a conversation between all of us. So please do feel free, after our panelists have come in, to contribute. So I'm delighted that we have got Dawn, Carroll and John Whall with us this afternoon, who are going to talk in a little bit about their fantastic work that they're doing in this area of digital and participants in later life. I'm going to start with Dawn. So Dawn is the Relationship Programme Manager for the award-winning Dementia Awareness Programme at the National Museums of Liverpool. And she's worked on the History of Me project, and has also developed an app in that place as well, and is also part of the network of the Happy Older People Network in Liverpool. So really, really delighted to have Dawn here with us as well. And also we've got John Whall with us from Quad Derby, which is an international centre for engagement in contemporary art and film based in Derby. John has done is doing fantastic work with participant engagement and technology, has a special interest in immersive technologies, including AI, augmented reality and virtual reality, and also has an overview of Gold Stars, which is participants aged 50 and over in Derby. And can you still hear me? I think, yeah, can I get a yes? So sorry for that. I had a bit of a technology glitch here, which is why I've been slightly discombobulated, so apologies for that. But yes, John working in the Derby Quads, looking at participation and cultural engagement, especially for people in later life over 50 with artists and cultural practitioners. So that's a very, I mean, they're all doing so much amazing work. So it's very, very hard to encapsulate what both Dawn and John do in a short amount of time. And it's a bit of my anxiety around it, I think. But anyway, perhaps if we can come first to Dawn for you to introduce us. I wonder if it's better if we sort of do intros for Dawn and then go straight into your presentation, Dawn. So, or then come to John and then do John for the same for John. Does that sound like a good plan? Yeah, I'm seeing some nods there from John. So Dawn, really, really warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for being here. Really excited to have you here with doing all your fantastic work. So yeah, over to you.
Okay, lovely. Thanks so much for having me. Before we start, I'm a white woman with red long hair. I'm wearing big glasses, and behind me there's a red wall and a mirror. But hopefully, if all goes well, you won't see that for very long, because you'll be able to see my PowerPoint presentation. So let's just see if this works. Okay, can everybody see that slide?
Yes.
That is good news. Okay, I can't see you now. I can just see my slide. So, you know, if I'm looking in the wrong direction, I do apologise. Okay, thanks very much, Chris. So, as you say, my name's Dawn Carroll. I'm the Relationship Programme Manager for the House of Memories programme at National Museums Liverpool. And like I say, thank you so much for including me today. For those that don't know, National Museums Liverpool is a group of museums that have got, we are national, so we're DCMS funded, and we're in around the Liverpool city region, mainly city centre, but also on the Wirral, and that's some of the venues that are part of our group. And our mission is creating memorable experiences for everyone and challenging expectations. And I think that's a really good fit for what we're talking about today in a way, because it is about how we engage with people and how we make our offer compatible for all our different audience types. And obviously in this instance, we're talking about digital, and we're talking about older people. And as Kate mentioned as well, I also am part of HOP, the Happy Older People Network, which is a network that National Museums Liverpool set up. We are part of the partnership with Younger Art, Open Eye and Fact, which has been funded by Arts Council and the Bearing Foundation. And that we really look at how we can connect older people with cultural activity, with age-friendly arts and health. We bring organisations together and individuals to share best practice and to sort of stimulate new programs and ways of working together. So just to say a little bit about House of Memories, as I say, that is our museum-led dementia awareness training, and we work with partners in the UK, internationally. We started off in Liverpool in 2012, and we support people living with dementia and their carers, whether that is professional carers or informal family carers, by sharing sort of museum resources that can help them to live well. And so in the context of what we're talking about today, I think it's that second bullet that's probably I'm going to delve into a little bit, which is we like to work in consultation and to work with co-creation, working with people living with dementia who are experts by their own experience. Just in terms of dementia, obviously, dementia and aging are not the same thing. Not everyone that grows old will get a form of dementia, and not everyone who has dementia is old, but it is a risk factor for dementia. So sometimes those things do go hand in hand. And of course, the carers that we're talking about are often in that older age bracket as well. So the first project I just wanted to touch on was the My House of Memories app. This was co-designed with people living with dementia and their carers. It was launched in 2014, and we've evolved it quite a lot since then. But we also collaborated with Liverpool John Moores University and also with Mercy Care Foundation Trust. And I think that is something that's worth noting, because we've really found the value of both of those things, of the process of co-creation, but also partnering with other organisations that have a relationship with older people. And that's enabled us to develop a relationship of trust and to sort of broker how we work together. So I definitely recommend that. The app itself is a bit like a mini museum in your pocket on a tablet or on a phone. It brings together hundreds of objects, probably getting towards thousands now, from across different museum collections. It's really important that it's easy to use, and it does use touch screen rather than a keyboard. And of course, when we started out, the sort of phenomenon that's been tablets and touch phones wasn't as advanced as it was now, and not as many people had them. But of course, they've become a lot more commonplace. But it does take away having to worry about keyboard and how controls relate to an activity. So we found that really useful. People wanted something multi-sensory, and we do layer up with music, sound effects, videos. And the idea is we connect people to each other and to their own identities through their life histories and things that are important to them. But again, it's not just reminiscence, it's not just looking backwards, it is adding value to the moment, and it's giving some people something meaningful to do together. And although it was co-created for people living with dementia and carers, we know the appeal of the app is a lot wider. It's great for intergenerational, for example, because, you know, often young people have got the technology, but older people, you know, they know the stuff, they know the content, and the sort of, they've got the memories to bring to the conversation. And it's great for networks and cultural organisations supporting older people, but really it can be used by everyone, although we've applied this co-creation approach. So just to show you some of the benefits of working in that way, this is the sort of opening page of our app. And as you can see, it's got very big, bold buttons that say exactly what they are. And that's because the team that we worked with insisted on that. That was really important to them. When we started out, it was a bit more thinking about the aesthetics and what it looked like and design. And people said, no, don't do that. Put a big button on that says exactly what it is. And that's the route that we went. And that's what makes it so intuitive and easy to use. When you open the app, you're presented with a number of objects that might prompt a memory. But I think, you know, through that co-creation process, we realized that everybody's got different preferences. They've got different accessibility needs. So that options button became really important because that allows you to have fewer objects or more objects on the screen. You can turn sounds on and off. You can turn music on and off. The buttons themselves, when you press on them, they tell you what it does, and you can turn that off because obviously everybody's different, even though we're talking about an audience type. When you go into an object to find out a bit more about it, it pops up and it's bigger on the screen. And when you press on information, it tells you about that object. but some of the features that older people and people living with dementia told us they wanted, one was a hint button, because they were like, don't just give us an object and tell us what it is, because that's a bit boring. We want, you know, a chance to be able to recall that information ourselves. And for some people living with dementia, memory, you know, recent memory can be difficult, but older memories, you know, are easier to retain. So that hint button became a really good tool to give people a chance to think about the information without it just being on a plate. And then also the close button, you'll see that is slightly skew if on this picture. And the reason for that is people said, what if we get stuck? You know, we won't know what to do. So what we actually did is there's a movement in that button. So it waves from side to side and sort of says, you know, press me. And that gives people a chance to be able to close and come out of the screen. And again, people can collect objects that mean something to them. So this, I think personalization is quite a big theme in terms of the app. So people can collect things that mean something to them, and they could go back and have a conversation about that. And they can also, they can have their own profile on there. So they can have more than one memory tree. There can be more than one person using a tablet at the same time. And again, just in terms of offering choice and giving people different things to do, we've got lots of different themes in there, from different collections, different sort of heritage backgrounds, different professional backgrounds. So for example, maritime memories has a lot to do with seafaring, which is obviously really relevant in Liverpool. And just this idea of providing options and choice for people has been really important to the work that we do. One thing people were also very interested in was adding their own photos into the app. So we did add a separate section called My Memories, where people can upload photos or add in text about specific memories they have. Just going to take a very quick drink before I carry on. We started off in Liverpool, but we have worked in America, in the USA, with Minnesota Historical Society. And in the US, we worked with the African American community to find objects that resonate in that community. So you'll see some of those objects at the bottom there that are from Minnesota Historical Society's collections. And recently, we've also launched the app in Singapore, and that was working with the National Heritage Board. And recently, it's been translated as well into Tamil, and Malay and Chinese. So that's due for release anytime, the sort of translated versions, which again just gives people lots of different options. Just a very quick slide on this. We've tried to always, you know, develop the app and go to the next thing that we could do. We're actually got some funding from Esme Fairbairn Foundation to run a Connecting with Yemeni Elders project. And we're taking a slightly different approach with this. So this is going to bring packages into the app that will tell the story of the Yemen and connect with cultural objects that mean something to older people in the Yemen. But we're going to co-create with younger people because there is sort of an issue with young people from the Yemen connecting back to their own culture. So we think this is going to be great because it's going to be twofold. You'll have young people working with older people in their community. And the older people teaching the young people about, you know, the memories from the Yemen. So we're really excited about this new approach we're taking. I'm just going to move over to another quick project as well. I'm sure time's ticking on. House of Memories on the Road is something we're working on at the moment, and it's going to be launched next month. We wanted to see what we could do that was like the app, but that was more immersive, and where we could go next with the technology. So that is what the On the Road project's going to be. And we did some initial consultation, and people sort of said to us that travel could be a barrier in terms of getting to the museums. So whatever we did, it was important that it was something that could go to them. And also, again, this thing of having choice, of having different multisensory activity came to the forefront a lot. People talked about a digital window and the idea of bringing the outside in. But it was also important to people that it was a shared experience and it wasn't something they were just going to be done in isolation. So we've taken all those things into account. And again, lots of different themes came through that people would like to see in terms of the content. And this idea of multisensory, for example, smell, you know, as well as audio visual things that would go in there. And this is what we've actually come up with and commissioned. It won't look like this when we get it because it's going to be bright pink and it's going to have our branding all over it. And we're really excited because it comes very soon. But basically, it's called a Dropbox. As you can see, it folds down into practically one car parking space, and it goes onto the back of a custom-built wagon, which then, you know, you can deliver it somewhere. It folds out with a hydraulic system into this sort of classroom mobile environment. And one side of that is digital and is like a 3D cinema, and the other side we're going to keep as a classroom environment. But this cinema space has also got sensors and things and projectors which will enable people to interact with the walls. So we are developing some of our own content, but it's also going to come with a great library of things that have already been developed. So we think this is going to be brilliant for getting out to care homes, community settings, and where there are older people that maybe can't get to us. So the first theme that we're developing is around travel, and it's going to be the Liverpool Overhead Railway, which is one of our really popular exhibits in the museum. And it will be a digital space, but it will have hotspots that people can press. And much like the app, you know, things will pop up. There might be a sound effect, there might be some audio, there will be, it will tell you about what the object is. There may be music, and it will evoke an atmosphere of being in the past. And this is just a quick illustration of how the Liverpool Overhead Railway is starting to look within the digital space. So as you can see, we've started to sort of superimpose some imagery in the windows, but that's obviously not showing you the hotspots. It's just what the actual room itself will look like. And we're also going to do a shop interior, something that we can connect with lots of brands such as, you know, Marmite and different biscuits and sweets and soap powders. And we will make sure the experience is really multi-layered and multi-sensory. We've had really good support from Liverpool City Council on the capital side for this, and also from Unilever and Tesco, who, you know, we did the little green tokens in the shop for that. So that was brilliant that the public were really behind it. So just to summarise, I'm just thinking a bit about what the benefits of co-creation are. And for us, it's really been having invaluable advice from people who know what they want, experts by experience. It's got us to think more creatively in a way, because, you know, we've had to think differently about how we do things. It's also, you know, made us be realistic about what can and can't be achieved. It's challenged lots of our preconceptions in terms of our product, but also what older people can contribute and what's possible. It's created brilliant advocacy for the app, because the group of people that we co-created with have stayed on that journey with us and have really gone out and spoken passionately about it, not just as a product, but also in terms of an experience for them and what it's given them. And as I say there, it does offer a unique experience for those people that connect with your organisation. And the picture that I've used is actually from the House of Commons, because we launched the app at the House of Commons, and we would be able to take this group of people with us, which was a really proud moment for them. And again, I think it just recognises the value of contribution of what older people could do, not just as a passive audience or as a consumer, but, you know, as a creator and making a contribution to society. Just a few tips that I've learned through this process. Great to work in partnership, bring other people in with you, don't work in isolation. It's really, really helpful, especially in terms of those relationships. It enables you to develop trust. You know, do listen and respond to what people are telling you. It's not one size fits all. It isn't a sort of magic solution. So that options thing is really important. And you might not be able to do everything that people ask for you, so you need to make room to factor in your own expertise too. And this might be a bit of a luxury in some ways, but if you can be in it for the long haul, that's great, and that will bring even more value to your program or to your project. and you know, try and evolve with the technology and with your audience, because where we were a few years ago isn't where we're going to be in a few years. And even, you know, in these COVID times, people are using technology all the more, so I think that's definitely timely. Okay, so I think that's it from me, and I've just put my web address on there, and you can, the app is a free download. Please do, you know, download it, have a go, let us know what you think, and I'll speak to you soon when we have the questions.
Wow.
Okay, I'll just stop sharing now.
Dawn,
sorry that was at speed.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm just appreciating there is so much in there in what you've presented. Such a rich body of work, and really exciting to hear about the way in which the app was developed and all the ways that it's sort of organically developed as well, and it's sort of turned into other projects. And it's you know, some really fascinating points you make about co-creation as well. So definitely we'll come back to you in a second, but just a huge thanks for that, Dawn. Really, really brilliant presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to come on to John Whall now. John, hello, welcome. Over to you.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. That was a fantastic presentation, Dawn. I'm definitely going to check out that app. My name's John Whall. I'm the Digital Participation Curator at Quad in Derby. I am a pale-skinned male with brown hair that is looking okay considering lockdown haircut a few months ago, with a quite colourful Muppet-based background, and depending on where I sit, I either have a hat on or have a halo. I'm not quite sure which I like, but so I'm going to just share my screen. There we go. So thank you again for having me, Fact and Chris, and it's exciting to talk about the work that we do at Quad. As Chris has already stated, Quad is an international centre of engagement in contemporary art and film based in Derby, and our year-round programme focuses on major exhibitions, professional practice of artists, mass participation, commissions, independent film, and the creative use of emergent digital technologies, which a lot of my role has to do with. And our mission statement is making art, film and digital media accessible to all. We are involved in a number of different aspects of engaging the community through our exhibitions. I realised that the exhibition example that I give on the screen there, Warm Words and Otherwise, was also at Fact at Liverpool, by Anna Bunting Branch. That was a fantastic exhibition. As well as exhibition of open calls with communities and the public, our self-portrait exhibition on the right there, which had over 300 submissions, which we actually exhibited at Quad as part of a community exhibition as well. The work that I do doesn't just work with older people. I do a lot of work with families, with Q Club, which is a children need funded project working with children and young people with additional support needs. A lot of work with digital. We've recently started working with ESOL audiences and those people seeking sanctuary. Minecraft is really popular within our program, but also a huge chunk of it is well-being, which incorporates what I'm going to talk about today with working with older people. So I'm going to talk to you about Goal Squad, and Goal Squad is one of our core programs. It's in its 11th year now. It's by far one of our most popular participatory groups. It's for the over 50s, but that is such a big age range, considering that I think one of our participants is in her 90s. It came together in 2010, and it was a combination of what we had at the time called Connect groups, which were groups that weren't necessarily part of our program. We just facilitated their activities within the space, which was Midweek Treat, which visited the cinema programs, and Knit Squad, which is what it was. As it says there, it's about knitting. And the group came together as part of a co-curation project called The Old Masters, which is where they curated and exhibited works from the Arts Council collection. So these people had access to the 7,500 strong object collection in the Arts Council, and I wasn't part of the programme at the time, but I do know that they blew the budget on certain items. They really wanted some pieces in there that really struck them. And also the Goal Squad and the Creative Wellbeing Programme at Quad is also currently supported by Garfield Weston Foundation as part of our Uplift Project, which is designed to significantly affect change in terms of our reach and how we're best able to meet the needs of our partners as well as our participants. And a big aspect is about sharing our experience and learning with others. So I'm just going to show you a quick video of what our program looks like now, and then I'll go back to what it did look like. And this is obviously based on the changes through lockdown over the last year or so. So I'm just going to play this video for you.
Gold Squad at Derby Quad. Gold Squad is a relaxed, friendly group for anyone over 50 who is interested in creativity, learning new skills, trying new challenges in a supportive environment and working with other people. Since October 2020, our sessions have been taking place online via Zoom. Sessions are led by visiting artists and creative practitioners. Gold Squad teaches a variety of arts and crafts, including embroidery, felting, painting and more. Each session is 90 minutes long and costs £4. All materials needed for the session are provided and sent out to participants in advance. Artwork. In the past few months, Gold Squad has welcomed a variety of artists and practitioners, teaching them a range of new skills and techniques. Here are just a few examples, all made by our Gold Squad participants. Embroidered thistle with Philippa Larkham. Inspirational fabric banners with spiral arts for International Women's Day 2021. Momogami landscapes with spiral arts. Stitching on sheer fabrics with Philippa Larkham. And felting with Abby Canning. Exhibitions. Gold Squad are currently exhibiting a series of artworks at Derby Royal Hospital as part of their Air Arts exhibition, Unity. This project was undertaken by Philippa Larkham and 10 Gold Squad participants. Feedback. One Gold Squad participant says, "I enjoy the creativity that the teachers bring, many new skills and ideas that we can learn, and of course, seeing other people and enjoying their company." Another Gold Squad participant says, "I enjoy learning new skills and the background to some of the traditions and techniques. It's also good to produce something useful or which acts as a record of techniques which can inspire new projects. I enjoyed the increased interaction and banter between members as the weeks went on, which even worked via chat when I forgot my camera and mic."
A good instruction straight into sewing and then talking throughout it. It's lovely, a nice format. You know, I didn't it till I started coming, and now I love it and I don't want to miss it.
I was going to break down that video into just the slides, but I thought Emily, our creative wellbeing assistant, did a really great job of talking over the program then. Again, this is part of the work that we're putting together for the Uplift Project, supported by Garfield Weston. But before lockdown, and you'd note that we kind of started that program of online activity quite late on into lockdown, because it took us a long time to kind of realize the process that would work with a lot of our groups and not just our older participants. But before lockdown, in a pre-COVID digital approach to working with the group is very much split between artist and participant-led activities, so we couldn't necessarily just focus purely on digital, and there was a big reluctance around things digital, and I particularly use the quotation marks there because there's a lot to do with language, and the use of language was key. If we said that we were going to do a digital workshop, half the participants would instantly not show up, and it just kind of rephrasing how we approach things was really, really important. It was a lesson that we learned really early on. So when participants did take part in digital activities, they were enjoyed and they really expanded their interests, especially those who had tablet devices at home or were just starting to explore them. It really kind of helped there. And it was really difficult to manage digital expectations, and anyone who works with older participants, I think this is a key problem. The image there was part of a workshop by our first digital participatory artist in residence, Ashley James Brown, who did a fantastic workshop where he used memory and locations of where the participants had travelled. We pinpointed the geolocations on the map, and then we were able to create abstract shape jewelry 3D printed, and they really got into it and they really enjoyed it, and we were really apprehensive about whether they would enjoy it, but the thing that let us down was the shapes themselves were really difficult to print, and so they were constantly saying, when are we going to see the prints, when are we going to see the prints, when are we, and we just had to kind of say they're not working, and I think that was a bit of a letdown. So we just needed to kind of make sure you manage expectations with the group. And our conversations, because Quad became a couple of MPO rounds ago, Quad became a digitally focused organisation, but I think at some point it didn't quite get the buy-in from its groups. So with Goal Squad, because they were quite digitally reluctant, the approach that we took was about looking at digital within their lives rather than focusing on purely digital activity. So it became more conversational, or having devices in the room that help them look things up rather than actually making the activities themselves digital. And when we did move online into a digital space, I honestly didn't think it would work, but it did, and we were quite surprised by how successful it did work. Some of the things that we kind of noticed was there was a lot more communication was needed, especially around attending and booking. Older people are used to just showing up and paying and then going in. They're not used to booking online, for example. Our actual sessions doubled. We went from 1 session a week to 2, which we were really surprised by. It was really popular, and I think it was due to people wanting things to do in lockdown, you know, especially when we were stuck at home a lot. But we did notice that the attendance to those sessions would be half than normal, so there was a big gap of those who could access the sessions digitally. There was a lot more focus in terms of the activity output, and I say that purely because in the physical sessions, you could get up and make a cup of tea, people would walk around to other people, have different conversations, where this was more focused around the activity, even though a lot of kind of social interaction was happening. We realized that it was really important to have a really good static technical setup, and you know, that was noticed by our participants as well, how they appreciate just the ability to flick between seeing the person delivering and seeing what they're doing, and that became really key. We realized it was very time consuming for the activities, especially when you're sending out materials, and the timing of when bookings had to close to make sure you can get the materials together and post them out, and post activity as well, because we recorded everything and put them online. It took a long time to edit and put subtitles and things like that, and so that was a really big learning curve for us, how much time digital online activity was taking. It really became about social as well as the creativity. We had one participant, Rita, who was a lovely lady in her 90s, who couldn't take part in the activities because she had no one there to physically help her. She had quite bad arthritis in her fingers, but she took part just for to listen into the conversation and be there, which was really lovely. And there was much less interest in participant-led activity. There was very little confidence in being able to deliver that themselves. So we just didn't even try. And some of the surprises, it was really surprising to see that they were keen to explore other media to keep conversations outside of the Zoom sessions going. WhatsApp became the medium. People weren't interested in Facebook. It was about WhatsApp. So it was just purely about the discussion about what they were doing. There was a much more peer support. You know, with digital, it was really surprising because Rita, for example, was using an iPad, and when she had problems, I remember being in a session, I'd never accessed Zoom on an iPad, so I didn't know what the screen looked like. So I was umming and ahhing, trying to figure out how to help her, and instantly you had 2 or 3 participants go, "Well, you just go here on your screen, you press this," and that was really lovely to see that kind of growth in digital confidence and skills. And it was like they're never apart. You know, the physical sessions would be 24, 25, 26 people in a room together, all having these conversations, all having these banter, and that was happening online, which was really, really lovely to see. I'm very quickly going to go into Minecraft. complete segue, but like with the previous presentation, that we've done a lot of work with intergenerational work with young people and older people in digital spaces. We did a pilot project a number of years ago with Block Builders, which are a Minecraft organization based in Brighton, and it was a pilot project for Format International Photography Festival as part of a HLF bid that we sadly were unsuccessful with, but we got a lot of learning from the pilot anyway, and it looked to explore how local site had changed over the past 100 years. That wasn't reflection to the age of the participants, that was just a time frame that we chose because we thought it was a good figure. And our youngest participant was 7, with the oldest being 69 at the time. And in terms of designing that space, we looked at a focus that wasn't about the technology and wasn't about age, it was about heritage. And we explored a specific site that was known by the participants, which was actually right outside Quad. It's our marketplace, which is quite a historical site. We utilised local knowledge as well as new skills. And all the participants could contribute. So young people could contribute with their Minecraft skills and their ideation and some of the things that they were coming up with and what they could do. And older people were really great at contextualizing ideas and refining that kind of out there process that the young people has sometimes, where they just go for lots of ideas at once. And there's a great quote there from an older participant saying, it's great because you can build anything, endless possibilities. So they really found something in the creativity that Minecraft had to offer. And there was a lot of learning from that, even though it was quite a short pilot project. It was very popular with families. We've now embedded it as part of our Family Arts Festival offer. So and we do get a lot of older participants as part of those workshops. Both age groups had something to offer, and therefore both had something they could take away. Young people ideas really sparked older participant memories, and it wasn't necessarily just about place, but just about objects and how they do things. And it generated an interest in grown-up Minecraft activity, which we ran for a little while, and that was very surprising because it very quickly became less about the creativity in Minecraft and more around back-end servers and setups of home internet systems and things, which was really surprising. But older participants really kind of latched onto that as well. The younger people felt valued in their knowledge, and the older people felt they could learn more in much more simple terms. A young person explaining something to an older person was a lot more simpler to get across, which we found really interesting. And it led to more intergenerational work. So we did do a program working with a sixth form, local sixth form, where young people would come in and be kind of tech experts for older people to come in and kind of have their questions about their devices and using the internet, etc., which went down really well. So just finally, just some considerations I've put together around the topic for today. And around designing digital spaces, which we can go into more in the Q&A and further discussions, but I think these are some key things for me, and that is around giving plenty of opportunity for conversation, you know, not just focusing really hard on the activities, but actually just allowing conversation to happen, especially in online space where people have been restricted in what they can do. Be prepared to add more time to what you're doing, whatever the activity. There's a lot of hand holding, there's a lot of preparation pre-event and a lot of post-event kind of editing and getting things online. Make sure you send materials in plenty of time and with correct postage. That's one of the things that kept coming back, where, you know, just a millimetre out on the postage, people were having to pay extra, which a lot weren't that bothered about. It was just making sure that we were aware that it was happening. Your costs will increase, postage, materials, individual packs, all those things kind of add up, especially in staff time as well. Work with digital competent facilitators and artists, and there's been a huge leap in skills, I think, in the last couple of months especially. But those who are confident with delivering online were really key to give positive experience to the participants. There's lots of opportunity for something new. We've massively expanded our reach and who we work with in facilitators and artists, which was really fantastic. So we were able to offer new things. But also older people will have their favorite tools. There's no point trying to persuade an older person using an iPad for Zoom to use a desktop. That they lock into the things that they like and the things that they know, which is really important. keep to traditional making in a digital space like this, purely because it's familiar. But if you're not able to provide the tools and devices and technology, it becomes really difficult. And clear communication, I think, is really key. And I mentioned about language and avoiding the word digital, but what you're doing and why is really important. We had a grandmother as part of the Minecraft sessions who just dropped off her grandson and left, and I said, "Oh, are you not staying?" And she said, "Oh no, this is not for me," even though we communicated that this is for grandparents and older participants and young people. So why she thought it wasn't for her, I wasn't able to kind of understand, but it made me really resonate about clear communication. And also, again, trust. That's really important. I think if you can generate that trust with the participants, they want to take part in the activity and they want to kind of come back, and they trust you to take care of them and be there to support. So I think that's another thing to kind of make sure you're having at the forefront of your mind when you're working in digital spaces. And that's that for me. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I think we're going straight into Q&A, aren't we, Chris?
Yeah, thank you so much, John. Again, like so many sort of provocative things that in what you've said about how to, the challenges of the pandemic and how you've taken a lot of in-person, really rich in-person experiences for people in later life, over 50s, online, and the challenges of that, which I think cuts across so much of sort of cultural practice over the last 12 months. So brilliant, some really interesting themes. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, please do either put them in the chat or we'll come on to you in a bit. So do raise your hands and we'll come to you. But I thought I might just start off with a question perhaps to both of you, because I was really impacted by the way, Dawn, the way in which you said, there was co-creation, which is very much at the heart of how you have developed the app and have developed the wider program of House of Memories, and John, with the ways in which it seems like during the pandemic and going online, you've pivoted a lot depending on the feedback from participants and meeting them where they're at and what their needs are. So I wondered if you, both of you, might just say a bit more about how co-creation and how people in later life have been involved in your processes, how you've thought about that through the development of your work. Dawn?
Yeah, so we established a small group of people who, shown an interest in this. We were very lucky when House of Memory started, because a lot of the stars aligned and there was a big drive with the PM's Challenge on Dementia and a year of dementia locally. So I think in some ways we were able to piggyback a little bit on a few initiatives locally, but we were able to establish a sort of core group that we met with, and we met with them on a regular basis, probably monthly, I think, looking back. But we brought them in right at the beginning. We tested out the concept as well with wider stakeholder groups, people in the health sector and in social care sector, for example, and hospitals, as well as bringing in people to actually co-create with us. But so it was really from concept, how we should do things, content itself was developed with older people. And then every iteration, every sort of, we'd test it out, and we'd sometimes test out things in an analog way. So if we were looking at what museum objects to include, we wouldn't necessarily show them on an iPad initially. We would use conversation to test out, does this object actually work as something that's going to stimulate a memory or conversation. And then once you got that in principle, you could move it into the digital territory and then use that on an iPad. And there was a sort of separation out, I suppose, of people getting used to using the technology and people using the content that sort of all came together at the end. But we literally used, I shouldn't say used people, we worked with people throughout that process and made sure they were comfortable with how things appeared, what the buttons did, all of it from the beginning right to the end. And when we've gone back and we've made amends to the app as well, we've made sure we've brought people back to, to look at it again. But and aside from that, we also, obviously, once we developed the product, we did work with older people that had never seen it before and hadn't been on that journey with us, because I think that was important as well, to make sure that we'd just not gone down one alleyway that suited one group of people, but that it would suit, a wider group as well.
like a really iterative design process from the sounds of it,
Yeah.
in the true sense of that, you know.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
Yeah, John, how's that been? How's the how has the influence of the participants in Gold Squad influenced the development of the offer for Quad?
I think Goal Squad's been one of those programs where the program itself has always been quite co-curated because of the nature of participant-led delivery as well as artist delivery. So we would always work with the participants in what their interests were, what their skills were, what they were comfortable delivering and wanting to take part in. We were very, very fortunate to be able to work with Philippa Larkham, who you saw in the video there, who's a great online. She does some great online practice working with older people and community groups, and once they'd worked with Philippa, they wanted to do more and more with Philippa, so we actually adjusted our days from our normal program to be able to facilitate that, because we weren't locked down to that anymore. We adapted to the participants wanting to work with Philippa. And again, because of the popularity and that need to have a social creative output, we expanded to 2 sessions a week, where we had some activities that went down to nothing because of online engagement. Goal Squad doubled its kind of number of sessions per week, so that was really interesting. But I think the key thing is, because of the Uplift project, we were really going into a process of self-evaluation and self-feedback and using the participants' input into that. So we were capturing a lot of information, and they were really, really willing to give that feedback. The small clip you saw of Lottie at the end of the video was part of our regular recorded, we called them kind of tea breaks. We'd have little catch-ups at the end of sessions, just have a chat about how people were finding it, and getting that participant voice and recording it and examining things that way was really, really important, because we weren't able to have those conversations with them directly. The Zoom sessions would be, welcome everyone, let's get settled, it would happen, and then that it would end. Nor in the physical sense, we would be around a lot more and have those conversations with them.
Thank you so much. I'm just noticing a quick sort of technical question, I think, from Rebecca, who said that you mentioned a static digital setup. Could you explain that?
Yeah, sure. What we noticed very early on that not all the facilitators had the ability to kind of have different cameras or switch between how they displayed things. So while the building was open, and we're going back to this now that the building is open again, where people are allowed to go indoors, is having setups where we facilitate that. Philippa was great, she did a lot of online stuff anyway, but not all the practitioners had access to an additional camera, so you could have a top-down view of what they were doing. It became very chaotic, especially if participants wanted to go back over something. So having fixed setup, a fixed camera, a fixed position for the facilitator became really, really key.
Yeah, that makes me think about a key theme that seems to be coming up across a number of domains of cultural practice around psychologically safe spaces as well, that there's something about, you know, digital can be disorientating for people in later life, or people who've been living with cognitive impairment. So something about the safety of the online space as well seems to be quite key. Got some fantastic questions coming in, so I'm going to have a little look at some of the questions that people have put in. Roger's written, how much of this tech facilitated work will continue when distance and separation are not a determining factor in delivery? It's a great point. What is your sort of felt sense around this new idea of blended delivery or new normal, or where are we emerging into? How does that affect you, Dawn?
For us, I think our dementia awareness training program is the one where we might do a blended delivery. So, for example, we run dementia awareness workshops for carers at the Museum of Liverpool as a live program, and we've suspended that currently because of the challenges around, you know, carers and people from the care sector getting in. At the moment, it just wouldn't be practical with the risks of COVID. In the meantime, we've been developing an online training program which will go live next month. We've also delivered virtual online training to health and social care colleagues in Singapore. So when we worked in America, people went over and physically delivered the training in the museum in the USA. This time we did it digitally, and some of our team worked overnight for 5 days we did nights delivering the training to our Singapore colleagues and people, you know, in the health sector over there. So I think it gives us more flexibility, and also for you know, for family carers, it can be a real challenge for people to get out or to have a window to be able to leave the person they're caring for or their loved one. So again, we've done a pilot. We did a pilot last week as part of Dementia Action Week of delivering our dementia awareness workshop virtually via Zoom. So I think it'll be a growth area for us. I don't see it disappearing completely, because it just gives us so much more flexibility and reach in terms of how we can get to people.
Absolutely. And John, I'm wondering, you know, I'm sure there are some people in your community or participants who are sort of saying, I'm just desperate to get back in person. Actually, this is a stopgap. You know, when can we come back? Is that the case? And how are you thinking about the future of Gold Squad in person online?
It's constantly changing, and we're constantly having to go back to the participants to find out what they want to do. I mean, at the moment, the processes that are online delivery will continue to happen, while we, for those who weren't able or not able to attend online, we'll have more social get-togethers during our regular session time. So it's less about missing out on the activity and more about just reintroducing them to the building, because a lot of those will be more isolated than those who joined us online. But we've seen a drop in our online engagement across our participation and wellbeing programs anyway, because people are, you know, they're fed up with being at home, they're fed up with being in front of screens, they want to get out and do things, and they want to be more social. So we're really going to have to adapt to their needs. But the approaches that we're looking to take is where we have the facilitators deliver from the physical spaces, with the kind of invitation to say, we're here, there's no pressure, you can still join us online, but we're here if you want to join us in the physical space as well. We don't want to force the participants to come back if they don't want to, but we're just having to try and find that balance as well.
Yeah. I mean, there are a number of conversations going on with FACT over the next couple of days around different themes, and I think here we've got a space to really think about the digital, you know, digital engagement and digital design for people in later life. And I guess related to that, I was interested to ask both of you about what the sort of design processes or factors are that I was really interested, Dawn, when you were saying about that sort of collaborative way of working with a university, with a mental health trust. It sounded like you had quite a 360-degree view into the different sort of requirements for a digital app for people living with dementia. What was it like working in that collaborative way on the development of some digital technology with those different partners?
Yeah, I think it was brilliant, really. As I say, partly those bringing that relationship and trust with the older people, but also, you know, we're museums that are operating in the health sector in a way, because we're working with people living with dementia, and people might not think that's our area of expertise. So just having the input of people where it's their natural domain was really, really helpful. In terms of what's going to work for the sector as well as the individuals involved, and bringing that sort of clinical knowledge to it, you know, that's beyond just working with people's memories, which is sort of the museum side of operating, I suppose. And we've always we do like to evaluate and to bring in the sort of academic side as well, to make sure and to gather evidence, isn't it, to show good ways of working. So brilliant to have Liverpool John Moores involved, and they did as part of Innovate Dementia, which was a big European project at the time we were developing the app. They sort of evaluated that process of us all working together as well, and co-creation as a way of advancing technology for dementia. So somewhere there will be some research on that that people could read.
Brilliant, yeah. And John, how's that been in terms of the actual platforms that you've been using? I mean, you talked about Zoom, you talked about sort of WhatsApp and the kind of the off-the-shelf things that meeting people where they're at, I guess. But is that been part of the thinking, or has there been any other technologies that have been used in those workshops by practitioners in innovative ways?
There you go, title of the session, you're on mute. I think, as I kind of touched upon in the presentation, that it was really important in those online sessions to not then focus on digital tools and creativity in the sessions. I mean, you could have done lots of things with that. We didn't attempt a Minecraft with Gold Squad. That might have been interesting, it might have been possible, but it was really about focusing on those things that were not necessarily easy to deliver, but more tactile, more physical, more focused, and try to avoid things that could complicate things. You know, postage became really complicated, so we didn't want to then make things more complicated with downloading software or buying this thing. However, we did find that because the sessions were moved online, we were able to partner with Derby Adult Learning Services to offer other online sessions. That's both worked really well and not so well, and it goes back to kind of making sure your tech setup is right, because I know that one of the sessions that was on the best how to get the best out of Zoom, the facilitator's internet kept cutting out, which was really problematic. So it was really great that participants had interest in other things as well, which I think majority of our work in creative wellbeing was focused around this group over the last 10 or so months, because they really latched onto it.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm just noticing and picking up on a question from Karen, which is echoed a little bit later, I think, as well by Jasmine, something around really thinking about diversity and digital exclusion and people in later life from disadvantaged backgrounds. Obviously, there are huge challenges in here, but how have those factors influenced your thinking or the development of the online digital offer for you both?
One of the things we're currently involved with is we're launching a tablet loan service called Connect My Memories. We've got some funding to get a number of tablets together and use networks to reach out to people to be able to connect them in. So I suppose that's just a very practical way, but we will obviously work with networks that can reach those most in need is what we would want to do. Being harder to reach, people are by definition harder to reach, you know, so we'll be looking at ways that we can get to the right people. And also, you know, obviously in terms of diversity, again, working in partnership is brilliant for that. So for our Yemeni project, we're working with the Kumbra Amani Centre, but we're also we've recruited someone from within the community because we want to be really true to it and to make sure we can reach the people that need, you know, that the project is for in a very authentic way. So I think that's a really a good approach as well.
There's a question here that I think it's Matey. Apologies, Matey, if I'm not saying you're pronouncing your name correctly. But there's a really lovely point in here about the way in which, you know, you're scaffolding people's experience through the technology, or the way you might be sort of leading or inviting people who might be reluctant into that space. So is it a case for both of you as if create it and let them come, or do you very actively think around the social networks or support ways in which people are sort of led into your digital experiences, if that makes sense? So would Gold Squad, would Quad actively go out and sort of try and promote its online Zoom version of its workshops to people who might be not naturally native to that space, John?
It's difficult because we've found that we've had very little success with that in the past, even when we're in physical space. Gold Squad was very much a word of mouth thing, although we were able, through recording and editing and sharing the activities online, being able to kind of make that offer more known. But Gold Squad has always been, like I said, a word of mouth project. We have done a lot of work with older participants in that way before. We've done film projects with older participants. We do also partner with Arts Derbyshire with the matinee screening project, so we go out and actually, as well as in quad, screen films in smaller spaces, which kind of expands our reach. And we do know that participants from those projects come to quad to take up our offer in the building as well, because just because you're showing a dementia-friendly film experience doesn't mean that they just want to see those films. They do, you know, people have wider tastes, but it's not something we've particularly kind of delved into in terms of Gold Squad. Again, like I said, because of that word by mouth nature of it.
I think from my point of view, it's not something we specifically tried to do, but we naturally you would get a mixture of people who are more comfortable with it and people who are less comfortable, and the results may not be what you expect. So when we were developing the app, you would have family carers who say, oh no, he's not going to be able to do that, he won't like it, he won't be able to see the screen properly, he won't be able to operate it. And then by the end of the process, you would see people who quite confidently and independently could navigate through to the things that they liked, totally blowing, you know, the expectations of even their family carers. And then you would get, you know, you might get people who you would expect to have a better grip of technology, who and particularly professional carers as well, would think, oh, you know, that's nothing to do with me, I don't know how to use one of those, I'd be out of my depth, and so on. So like you say, it is about offering different levels of support for different people and nurturing people through that. And equally, we got people who weren't into technology, but by the end went on to, you know, get on Twitter and use that as a doorway to embrace other projects, further technology. Then we had people who were involved with the design but don't actually use the app themselves at the end of it, you know. So it's all that it varies greatly because everyone's an individual, and you know, people aren't necessarily going to do things they don't normally enjoy just because you've put it online, sort of thing.
There was a question from Roger around research, and I was wondering about sort of evidence-based practice. Obviously, with an app, Dawn, you've got the possibility to collect a large amount of data through people's interaction with House of Memories, and maybe there's even some sort of ethical implications in that about, you know, what happens to that information and data. So what role does sort of evidence-based practice and data that you collect play in your project?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one that we do collect some data, but it's not trackable back to the individual, so it's very much you know, privacy is very much protected. And even when people are working with their own images, they don't go anywhere on a cloud or anything, they're just on the device. So I think it's really, really important to respect people's privacy, and obviously you have to comply with the law and everything around that. So we can see patterns of how people use the app, but we're not tracking it back to specific individuals.
Yeah. Great, thanks. Any other questions, or do feel free just to, we've got time maybe for one or two more quick questions. Anyone would like to just come in and speak? That would be nice to hear other voices as well. It'd be good to get a sense of if anyone's got any particular questions. So Claire, was that, oh, I don't know. You were just waving, okay. Anyone else? Any comments? Or because we are going to go into breakout rooms soon. I was just going to ask a quick thing, maybe sort of about language for both of you. We've been talking about older people. Gold Squad is for people over 50. You know, there is something in here around language, isn't there? And about how we're talking about user experience for people in later life or older people. Or do you spend a lot of your time thinking about language and how you communicate what you do, and how you conceptualize things within your programs of work, John?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think because we work so closely with the participants over what their interests are, we don't necessarily have to worry too much. It's when we're trying to kind of add something new in terms of, especially with digital, that we really became very aware that you mentioned digital, you mentioned online, and participants really switch off. I think it's a lack of confidence thing, and it'd be interesting to see how that may have changed following the kind of lockdown era. But any situation where we would use, we're going to do a digital workshop on this. Oh, I won't be coming next week, or I'm not interested in that. But as soon as you change that description over what you were doing to, we're going to do photo collage using tablets, there was an interest, because you've said what they're going to do rather than just making it purely about digital. So even if they weren't confident, they have a vague idea of what you're doing, and because of that, it helped grow that confidence. But we would always try and have those conversations with the participants about digital, just to make them a bit more used to language and talking about it without putting those barriers up. So it became more about the conversational day to day rather than what the activity or tool or device that we would be using would be.
Yeah. And Dawn, especially around issues to do with sort of dementia, people living with dementia, I'm sure there's a lot around language and you know, how we talk about that experience.
Very, very much. You know, we do. There is the deep guidelines for dementia, which is around, you know, terminologies and way that people like to be represented. And as you say, it is people living with dementia. People get really, really cross if you say suffering with dementia. We also think about formal and informal carers as well. Quite often, you know, to most people, they're not a carer. They're supporting their husband or their mother. They don't define themselves in that way. We are sensitive to that. You know, we do spend quite a long time agonizing over language, you know, a lot of the time. So yeah, it's very, very important, I think.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about both of you in your areas of work, like what you're interested in is participation and engagement, and the technology that you both are using in different ways is just enriching those social connections that people would already have, right? So it's about, I was looking at with the House of Memories, you know, the way in which that piece of technology is just enriching two people coming together, or, you know, that it's a relational thing, that it's not about sort of giving someone a distraction or something to occupy themselves, that it's enriching relationships in some way.
Yeah, very much so. You know, it's a resource people can use to have a conversation, or, you know, quite sometimes people are non-verbal, but it is about connecting over something that is meaningful for them, or that sparks a memory. My director, who I work closely with, Carroll, that really came from her own personal experience of supporting a mum, because she used to say, you know, to go and visit my mum who was non-verbal, an hour is a long time. You know, and the app really helped her to revisit things that she knew would resonate with the mum, and that, you know, that she could see she was enjoying, or they would pick out things together. So it's definitely meant to be used together. And we have got a short film that we produced with some of the people involved with the app, and that's what one of them says. It's something we can do together.
Yeah. I've got to say, I absolutely love that film because I tracked it down. So if we could, I wonder if we could share that in the chat, because I really encourage anyone who hasn't seen it to, you know.
I was going to put it in my presentation, but then I thought I can't fit all the information in at the same time.
Okay, well, listen, thank you both so much. You've given us loads to think about, and in different ways. You know, there's so much amazing stuff going on, both you know, in Liverpool and in Derby. It'd be great. Now we really want to hear from you. We want to get you involved, everyone else in the group, and further this discussion. So we are going to go into smaller breakout rooms in a second, and the question that we'd like you to explore together is this, and we will put this in the chat and we'll put it in the breakout rooms as well. But the question is, what principles and practices best support engagement with technology and culture in later life? So there's a lot of concepts in there that we've we've tried to sort of have our cake and eat it, but really it's sort of building on the fantastic comments that Dawn and John have just brought in. But it's, what for you, and please bring in any realm of your experience. This can be as a user, you might be involved in building the technology, but all is welcome in this conversation. There is no sort of sense of expertise here. So you can just bring your own lived experience if that's appropriate. But what principles and practices best support engagement with technology and culture in later life? What we'd love to do after the breakout rooms, which are going to be for 20 minutes, or a decent amount of time together, would be if someone could maybe just make a few notes, because when we come back, we're going to have a bit of time together, maybe just to talk about some of the themes that came up for you in your discussion group. So if someone keen wants to nominate themselves in the group, we'll come back afterwards and we'll have a bit of time together for that person just to sort of feed back the overarching themes that came through from the discussion in that group. So Kate, if I can come to you, I think we can go into breakouts. How many people are going to be how many people have we got in each group?
We've got 4 people in each room plus a member of FACT. So someone from FACT will be able to note take in each room.
Okay, that's brilliant. That takes the pressure off other people, doesn't it? So we can have a FACT member, and then people can also comment afterwards as well. So have great discussions. And as I say, we'll see 20 minutes and we'll give you the question, and we'll broadcast the question again as well in case that's helpful for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone, welcome back. Good to have you all back. I hope that was a good discussion. I'm sure you could have gone on. I'm very aware of the experience we've got in this group, which is so rich, and it'd be nice to get a sense of start a conversation between us really, but get a sense of some feedback from you from those breakout discussions. So let's come to breakout room 1. We had in that group Selena, Leonie and Matey. How did you guys get on, and were there any sort of themes, strong points that came forward from your discussion? Who's reporting back?
I think it was quite a mixed conversation, and I did make some notes. It's quite randomized.
Thanks, Selena.
But I think we all thought the question was very broad, and we touched on several different topics. Just trying to copy paste my thing here. Can't seem to do that. Nope. Not allowing me to do it for some reason. But we were talking about how some older people get excluded because you can't necessarily not everyone have the same sort of engagement with things. And also we were talking about how technology is ever changing. It's constantly changing. So how do you then determine engagement with when it's fluctuating so much? And also we were looking at how, so Leonie made a point on how language is really important and how it determines you how you understand things and what's happening and how it does in the physical, and it's very much dependent on time, funding and support that you've sort of been given by the government and such. So it really differs based on the country you're in as well, I think, and not just time. And yeah, co-creation and things, and that's all.
That's a really interesting point around contexts in which projects sit or which technology gets developed. I was sort of thinking about the funding structure for something like a sort of unique piece of technology like an app versus digital support around sort of an existing in-person offer? They're kind of different models, aren't they?
I made a point actually. So I've just moved here to Malaysia, and I'm moving back to curate a project here actually. And I noticed that so being in the arts industry here, I noticed a massive difference between here and the UK in that in Malaysia you don't get much government funding for the arts, so everything's sort of privately funded, but there is this government initiative called Digital Penang for a state in Malaysia where they are trying to digitize the whole state by 2030. So they are giving out workshops and things to people, older people, consulting them, and also offering them installing free Wi-Fi and stuff, and working with institutions and things as well. And I thought that was quite interesting. So yeah, context is definitely important.
Thank you so much, Selena. Yeah, really interesting to hear that spectrum. I was just thinking about the Malay translation of House of Memories as well. You know, like I heard that from Dawn, that's a new thing as well. So yeah, really interesting to think about the way in different states think about the aging population as well. It's a fact that by 2030, 20% of the country is going to be over 65. So, and you mentioned, you know, the changing nature of technology. You know, this is a massive, you know, this is not a niche subject for all of us. This applies to so many of the people, you know, across the life course. Thank you. So let's come on to Andrea, John, Rachel, Sam, and Stuart. I think we're in a group. Anyone going to report back for you guys?
Yeah, I took some notes, so I'll happily report if everyone's okay for me to speak for them. We had some really interesting discussions from and inputs from Stuart, and he was talking about how it's not necessarily a barrier to technology through being competent enough to use them, but it really is the lack of confidence and the lack of confidence and willingness to try. And maybe that comes down to time, or maybe that comes down to past experiences that people have had. You know, Stuart was saying, which is a very good point, we all have older friends or older relatives that have had a bad experience in the past where they've broken someone's phone or they've messed something up and someone's had to come and sort it out for them, whether that's another family member or someone more official as in their job role. So, you know, people can have those experiences on themselves to then that lack of confidence is even worse when it comes to trying new technologies. And then we also started to talk about how John brought up some research that actually as you get older, you do have less of an interest in learning new things, and whether that comes into it as well. And again, that alongside the issue of confidence, it could be that it's not just that, you know, that they aren't willing to try, but they might not want to learn something new. They don't want to change how they're doing things. It's an overwhelming thought to try all these new things, and they're perfectly happy the way they are. So we were discussing about how we could make things less around a learning experience and more just around an experience, and not make it feel like they're there just to learn the technology and they're there to learn these skills. They're actually just there for the experience that these skills come through. That was sort of where we got to.
Yeah, what a brilliant point. I was thinking about that broad split when often when the government thinks about digital exclusion, they think about how older people aren't getting access to local services or medical assistance. So it's about knowledge, access to knowledge versus experience. I was thinking about the fantastic immersive experience that Liverpool National Museums of Liverpool have been developing, and that travelling immersive experience. So it's about the sort of sensory enrichment of people's experience. So I think there's something about sort of people's relationship to knowledge and experience with digital as well. They're kind of two quite different realms. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Let's hear from, I think we had Carlos, Claire, Karen, Lucia, and Roger were in a group.
Yeah, I took some notes. I'm going to do like a quick overview of the different things that we talk about. And if anyone wants to expand from my breakout room, please go ahead. So we started talking about creating the actual experiences and the offer from different arts organizations in this case, and we all agreed that they need to be blended offers. We need to grow and evolve into offers that are accessible to everyone, and that everyone has an opportunity and everyone feels relevant to them, specifically in the technological access side of things. We really want to facilitate a space and offer a wide range of opportunities to engage all the different experiences of technology in their lives. And then from that point, Roger made a really interesting and passionate point, which talk about the definition of later life. When is later life? And then he was wondering if we are preparing people for a future that may not be as technological as we expect it to be. So he was saying that everything with working with older adults, older people, everything starts with a conversation, no matter what technology is in between. And he was saying that it would be very useful for us to talk to the older people, talk with them and to them about technology to find out where they stand. And he was making a point about indoctrination in terms of technology, just asking people if they're interested and they want to engage with it, and if they don't, just accept that as well and find other ways of engaging with them. And all of these conversations took us to a very interesting question that Lucia extracted from it, which is also around language and how do we name and define the groups we work with? What do we mean when we say like later life and when we say older person, older adult, or younger people even? And then that took us to another question that's way bigger than all of us, which is how does the Arts Council choose what is a young person, an adult, or an older adult? And I think that's it from us. Anyone wants to add anything?
Yeah, thank you so much. Some fascinating points in that. Roger's point around, you know, the what is technology in terms of it's a sort of interface between, you know, and what is that interface, and is it going to increase, or, you know, technology for technology's sake, or does technology increasingly become more and more transparent and more invisible, and it's actually just about that sort of interpersonal connection between people? That was a fascinating point. Yeah, and naming. I just think this point about, you know, what does it mean that we're having a conversation about digital and later life? What is this separating out of that experience demographically from other people's experience? And do people in later life want to be talked about as a coherent group, or, you know, or actually should we be talking about intergenerational or technology across the life course, you know, rather than these? And there are significant things like, as Dawn was saying earlier, dementia, cognitive impairment, that do seem to be later life specific, so they are important to address. So some really great provocations and challenges in there. Thank you, Carlos. And then we had Becky, Dawn, Neil, Paula and Rebecca. Anyone reporting back on that for that group?
Yeah, I made some notes, so I can start off, and if anyone else from my group wants to chip in, just chip in and interrupt, please. So we just spent a bit of time. We had 2 artists and then 3 people for institutions. So it was really interesting just hearing about people's different experiences of working through the pandemic. There were, in terms of practices, there were things that we were all kind of saying that felt quite in common. Who was it? Paula made a really good point of just saying to meet people where they're at, and to kind of make that your starting point. The fact that it's always just going to take a lot longer than you think, that we need shorter sessions, more breaks, and to just go with the flow, especially if you work in, as Rebecca was telling us, rurally, when your internet's likely to drop out. It's just get used to videos disappearing and spending half the session in the chat. We talked a bit about how to stay in touch through kind of online working. I was asking the group how they understood, or how kind of working online had understood changed how they understand progression and that understanding of just like the participant's journey. Becky made a really interesting point at the Blue Coat and the Blue Rooms there. They run a social get together. So as in addition to the kind of the arts-based sessions that they do, they have a catch up where people just meet up, socialize and kind of show where they're at. And that's the point where you kind of really get to see where people are at. But then Paula also said, it's so important just to make sure that to kind of take the pressure off people in the sessions and facilitate in a way where you make it clear that this isn't about high pressure, making the best work, putting the pressure on participants. But then actually once people are comfortable, that's when people start to really progress and make interesting work. And I thought that was so interesting, just thinking of so much about working, especially in the Zoom space, is that we all kind of adjust how we facilitate because it can be so awkward. So how to balance that. What do you all think, group? Is there anything else that we talked about that we should say?
Thanks, Neil and everyone. Yeah, as 64 million artists, we've been running online facilitation training for practitioners, and it's been so eagerly taken up by people. I was wondering if I could ask, we've got some artists in the group, I think, hopefully. I was just wondering if anyone would like to talk about their experience of delivering or developing their practice online over the last, during the pandemic, or what that's been like for them. Anyone willing to talk to that from a practitioner perspective? Leonie, thank you.
One thing I've learned is like process is really important in like developing your practice, but the way that I think I've done a lot of things that are collaborative with someone else who's not in the same space as me, and so much of your process becomes like online or through conversation, which is really hard to track or trace in the same way that if you were like in the same space, you might be like making something physically, like this is my process. And so you just have to have like a different period of reflection to be able to understand that maybe your process has changed and it's more like language based, but then you need to like be able to kind of go back and look at how that process took place and what your new process is, and that you do have one, but I think it can be harder to find. Maybe we'll see.
That is fascinating. So is there something about the online encourages you to move into a bit more of an outcomes focused mode in delivery?
Yeah, I guess so. Or in a way where, because maybe some of the way that you're used to making might be reduced in other ways, then yeah, I think it does kind of encourage outcome in order to be able to, because time also has changed in the way that you work. So like, I think outcome, and it helps to understand how time is passing differently as well.
Yeah. Paula, I saw you nodding there. Can I come to you? What perspectives do you bring to this?
I guess I just find it hard to speak about in brief, because it's been something that's kind of been in my practice for 7 or 8 years now. So I find it hard to kind of reduce it to something in a few minutes. And it's something I seem to be talking about at length in panels and stuff at the moment. But I guess, I guess to me, maybe what I would say in this moment as one of the things that's been a big shift is I think it's pushed me to be even more interdisciplinary than I was before. I think I've always been interested in working in different forms, but I think prior to the pandemic, I started to kind of live more within devised theater with maybe multimedia elements and like social media outputs. But because I wasn't able to make work in person, it really meant every single project I've done has been some approach to innovation of form, because it has to be. And I think where it leaves me is really questioning. I don't think I don't want to say I'm never going to make shows again, because that sounds weird, but it feels like going back to making in-person shows in the way before seems quite bizarre after the experience of the year, now that I've found all these other ways of working. And I guess the only other thing I would say is I always started with audience or with participation, but now I don't understand how that wasn't the first and second and third point, if that makes sense. That's really come out of the last year, rather than going, oh, I wonder who the audience will be. It's really spending most of my time thinking about the audience. That's definitely come out of this year.
Thank you so much. Any other? Yeah, Rebecca.
I was just thinking, like, before pandemic, my work was very site specific, and I think what I've moved towards is engaging with people online in order to make the work. So it's still site specific, but I think it's really brought home to me how it's not just the space but the people involved, because normally if I'd go and visit, then I'd be having conversations with the people who work there, the people who volunteer, the people who visit, and now I've done that online, and I've realized how incredibly vital to the process of the work I make that is. And I've gone from making installations to making online animations, but really there's something in that process where people is just vital to it, and it really doesn't work without that.
And do you engage with older participants? Is that a part of your practice, the focus?
Well, it's not really specific, but that happens, you know, that's one of the things that happens in that it can be anybody around. Yeah. And I did a commission for Worcester City Art Gallery. I talked about it in our group, and so I sent message to the volunteers and the staff, and you know, on social media as well, so people who visited normally could interact. And I got quite a lot back from the volunteers, and I think, you know, the age range was a, you know, a higher age range for that. So I just thought that was really interesting, and you know, it's really worthwhile. I got a lot out of those interactions during kind of the first lockdown period, really, and the second. So it was really good.
That's fascinating, thank you. And so actually maybe the sort of the Zoom space enables a greater diversity of age ranges to come together for some experiences than perhaps a kind of in-person focused.
Yeah, I did less with Zoom, and it was more asking people to send me their museum objects, their favourite museum object, and a bit of the story behind why they liked it. And so I offered people could email me, they could send me a social media message, but I also said if anybody wanted me to phone them, they could send me their phone number and I could do that. But nobody took me up on that. But I wanted to make sure it wasn't only the online space that was, you know, part of the project.
Yeah. Lovely, thank you so much. I'm aware of time, and I wanted just to sort of invite Fact back in, because one of the focuses of these workshops is to think about maybe a resource that we can develop, which can really help practitioners or organisations think about best practice in terms of developing digital platforms or interventions for people in later life. So Kate, do you want to say, or someone from Fact, do you want to talk about that, the resource side of this in the last few minutes?
Yeah, if you want to add anything to Sophia, just jump in. But we're going to be compiling the information that's been generated through this series of sessions into resources that'll be accessible on Fact's website, so they'll be available in the next few weeks. But as you've signed up through the Eventbrite, we'll be able to email you and let you know that when those are available. Part of that will have the panels from this session that we've recorded, and we'll edit those and clean up the subtitles and stuff. And then this session, it will be a how-to guide for working with older participants on digital engagement projects. So I think a lot of the information that has been brought up in this session will be really valuable, and I think the breakout rooms seem like they were very rich with ideas and information. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we finish, Chris?
I just wanted to basically say, if anyone's got any thoughts about things that would be really useful as a resource for practitioners to think about, do stay in contact. You can contact, obviously you can contact us at Fact. You can drop something in the chat now, if you've got anything that you think would be really sort of helpful in that resource. But just before we leave in the last 2 minutes, I'd love to come back just to Dawn and John and just sort of get any kind of to thank them, first of all of you. Thanks to everyone for being here today. It's a huge subject, and just I feel like we've scratched a tiny surface, but there's been some really fascinating thoughts that have emerged. So Dawn, any closing thoughts from you? Is you there, Dawn? No. Oh, well, let's come to John. John, can you hear me?
I can, yes. I think something that resonates for me is something that's been discussed in this last kind of 5 minutes, is around the age range. And you know, we talk about working with older people as being 50 plus. I've done projects where it's been 60 plus or 65 plus, or at retirement age, which, you know, keeps changing. But how long we live keeps changing as well. And I certainly think it's really difficult, and Rebecca, I think it was you that commented about Arts Council monitoring. Arts Council tracks anyone over 65 as one age group, but it's really difficult. And from my own experience of working with over 65s, particularly on a project that I worked on a number of years ago, it's really key to come to their interests rather than their age. Dial back the age and focus on what they're there to do. Otherwise, they get fixated on it, and that becomes the topic of discussion rather than the actual project or the work itself or their interests. And it does create conflict. It does create kind of a barrier between you as an organisation and them as participants. So if we stop seeing older people as older people and start seeing the people who have life experience and interests, because you know, when they get to a certain age where they are free from their family responsibilities and their work commitments, they can do the things that they're interested in, focus on that, and that becomes a really key area for engagement.
Thank you so much. What a powerful and brilliant point. Thank you. Yeah, so couldn't agree more. Dawn, have we got you back? Hello.
Yes, sorry, I just decided to drop completely out then. I had to sign back in and everything. I don't know what happened. Yeah, so there was just a couple of points in our group that have sort of stuck with me, actually. One was I really like the idea that Rebecca was talking about of a sort of blended offer where you're sending people out who are more used to an analog experience, or that they can then use, you know, later digitally. It reminded me of Lilo and Stitch. You know, no one gets left behind, and we need to make sure that we're thinking about everybody and where they're at in their journey with digital to make sure we're meeting everybody's needs. So I think that's really good. And then there was another one, which was I think was Paula was talking about the fact that it's become the norm for things to mess up, like very timely, as I've just dropped out of the link, but you know, for animals to appear, for children to appear, for the technology not necessarily to work. And if the fear of using technology comes from the fact that people might think they're going to mess up, this has been a massive leveler. So I think that's a real positive, actually. And that, you know, that may for the future, people may be less reluctant to get involved if they know that that's pretty normal now. That's sort of the new normal.
Thanks, Dawn. Yeah. Brilliant point to leave on. Thank you so much. So thanks from me. And I think, Kate, you just wanted to have one quick message as we leave.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone, and we'll see some of you again in the next couple of sessions. If you did want to book for tomorrow or now Friday as well, we've increased the capacity for both of those. So if you couldn't get tickets the first time, have another look on the Eventbrite and you should be able to get a ticket now. So we would also like to collect your feedback as well, if you have any. So you can head to fact.co.uk/digital survey, or you can tweet us at FactLiverpool and use the hashtag you're on mute. Once again, thank you, and we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.